Hi guys, Aviation JFK here, back at you with another video. Today we're going to be doing a new series on the channel. This series is going to be called the comparison series, or the model comparison series. It is where I take two different manufacturers who make the same plane that I own, and I compare them. And I'm not going to really I'll try not to give as much of my opinion. I'll try to just speak about what is realistic and what looks better. So I actually probably will include my opinion. But yeah, today the first one on this series is going to be the Geminijets versus NG model 787-9. This is an unbiased comparison video. I just want to say these models are both really good. So yeah, I'll kind of just dissect each model detail by detail, and then we'll go from there. So first thing is we'll start off with the nose of each aircraft. So here we are with the two noses of the aircraft. Just so you know, the KLM one is the NG models one, and the Aeromexico Quetzalcoatl aircraft is the Geminijets one. So first off here, I just want to pick up how the NG one is sitting a little bit lower to the ground than the Geminijets one. I actually think that the nose of this aircraft on the NG one is sitting just a little bit too low to the ground compared to the rest of the aircraft, because as I'll show you in a minute, the main gear is quite tall and the aircraft leans forward quite a bit. Now, as for cockpit window detailing, although the Geminijets one has not really got a rim around it like the NG models one does, I think this one is very nicely placed, and when you look at it from a distance, it looks really realistic. The KLM one or the NG models one has a really nice touch with the black rim around it, but I personally think that the cockpit window is placed just a tiny bit too low. But then again, I also think the Geminijets nose is a little bit too round, whereas the NG models one is very nice. It's nice and pointy. Now, I think they both have adequate amounts of detail. I think the NG model one just has a little bit more around the cargo door area here, but both have very nice prints on the front section of the aircraft. So here we have the wing section of the aircraft. Sorry, my camera won't really focus in on this, and the camera doesn't really pick it up. I'm not sure if you can see it on the screen, but the engine blades on the inside of this aircraft model right there are very nice. You can actually see through the engine, which is really nice, whereas on the Geminijets one, it is just a solid plastic piece. Now, it looks fine, but if you do have a really picky eye, you will notice that. And so for that reason, I actually do think the NG engines take the T on this one. Now, moving on to the wing. The wing shape of the NG models one is a little bit better than the Geminijets one, purely because the Geminijets one, as I'll show you in a minute, is a little bit thicker compared to this one, and these wings are perfectly, as I mentioned in my unboxing, perfectly shaped as if the aircraft was sitting at a terminal or taxiing on the ground. I do, however, think, now looking at the Geminijets one, I do, however, think the lines where the no step lines on the aircraft wing are a little bit too faint. Now, I don't actually know if that's something to do with the KLM plane itself or just the plane in general, but I do think that these no step lines are a little bit too faint on the NG models model. Now, there is a little bit more detail on this wing compared to the Geminijets one. If we go over to if the camera will focus here, you'll see that there is a little fuel dump tube. Now, that is something that is not present on the Geminijets aircraft. Now, both aircraft have very nice riveted wings with molds and stuff, so there's actual texture to the wings, which is very nice. So yeah, we'll move on to the Gemini one now. So here you can see the engine. I'll just pan the camera down just a tad here. You can see the engine detail. It is nice. The fan blades are bent like in the, or like curved like in the real thing, but I just think it looks a little bit less realistic compared to the NG models one, purely because this is just one piece of plastic. Now it still looks very nice, but if you were to shine a bright light towards the aircraft, or like you would take a picture with the flash on, the picture would come out not that nice, purely because the engines are very shallow, if that makes sense. So now moving on to the wing detail. As I said, the wings on the Geminijets one are a little bit thicker. I'll show a low down front view of the aircraft in a minute, and then you'll be able to see the thickness of the wings. But here, the one thing I was just now mentioning is that the nose step lines on the wings are a little bit, they're like black, and on the NG one they're grey. So I think Geminijets takes the wing detail as in for markings. But when it comes to the wings themselves, the mold of the wings, I think NG will take that one. So here we have the shape of the wings that I was talking about. I just think that the bow of the wings is not very realistic to the shape of them when the aircraft is on the ground, if that makes sense. And I also think the wings are too thick throughout the aircraft. You can just see at the second half of the wing beyond the engine, it is just way too thick for to the scale of the Dreamliner. Now I'll show you that in comparison to the NG models one now. So here we have the NG models wing shape, and as you can see, the wings are very nice and thin, and the wing tips are just a little bit bowed up like in real life. And the wings are very thin, and they are also drooped down a bit as if the aircraft was on the ground. So moving on to the overall, so we'll move on to the rear of the aircraft now, and then we'll do an overall look on how the aircraft looks, and then my final round of thoughts. So here we have the rear of both aircraft. Now I think there's quite a bit to talk about when it comes to the rear of both of these aircraft, because as you can see, the Geminijets one is sitting a little bit lower than the NG models one. That is because, as I mentioned earlier in the video, the main landing gear of the NG models aircraft is too tall, which makes it stand a little bit sloped towards the nose. Now the Geminijets one sits perfectly on the ground in my opinion, but this is something you will not notice unless you have both of these aircraft side by side, and I don't think it's a big issue. It's just one of those things that if you're really nitpicking, then this is one of the things you'll probably pick up on. Also, I don't know if you can see right in front of the vertical stabilizer on the NG models aircraft, there are two small antennae. I'm not exactly sure what these function as, but on the Geminijets one there is that only one longer one. So yeah, that's basically it for the rear of the aircraft. Now onto the overview. So that's basically it for the in-depth section of the video. I'm just going to give you kind of an overview. Now I think that both of these models are very, very nice, and they're both worth buying. It really is on personal preference. There are some areas that the NG models aircraft excels in, whereas there are some areas that the Geminijets model excels in. Now Geminijets also tends to have a larger variety of aircraft, so if you really had to go for the Gemini, or if you really find yourself not wanting to go for the Geminijets one, I can tell you from experience that it is a very perfectly fine model, and they are both very robust and good quality. Now the NG models one has a little bit more detail, thus it feels you have to be a little bit more subtle with it, or you just have to baby handle it a bit more, as you should do with all your models. But the Geminijets one just feels like more well put together in my opinion. but they are both extremely great models, and if you can get your hands on one or the other, I would definitely recommend doing so. Now, most of these things that I compared together, they're like things that you probably won't notice if you have one or the other, unless you put them next to each other. And I think these are two of my most favorite models in my collection. So yeah, it really does come down to personal preference. They both have exceptional amounts of detail. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you found it helpful. There will be another one of these videos coming out in the next few weeks, and it will be on the 737s from Gemini compared to NG models, as I'm getting the Alaska 737-800 from NG models. So that should be a pretty interesting video. Let me know what you thought of this first video of the series. As I said, this video is more to like help you decide, and it's not really to tell you that one is bad, because I think these are both absolutely stunning models. So yeah, it's been Aviation JFK signing off.